Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasuretown here, and today I want to kind of do more of a serious topic and something that I think is a really important thing to be considering as we are in this kind of new time of economic uncertainty. And there's a lot of questions. People don't really know where to put their money, how to have the proper investing strategy, and so I wanted to share some of my thoughts and kind of look at different things that have gone on in the past and that are going on right now, and the different potential pros and cons of investing in precious metals at the current moment. As always, this is just more of an opinion video. It's for fun. It's not shouldn't be considered investment advice. And I do want to say that honestly, what I've been saying and kind of promoting in the past is probably how I'd recommend to continue. But again, this is just one person's thoughts, and I hope that you enjoy kind of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to be bringing up three main points about silver and then gold. We're going to start with the silver, and then after that we'll do those 3 points on gold. Now, one thing that I do want to say before we get into the video, I'm trying to avoid getting caught up in hype and being more just instead, this is not what I'm avoiding, being analytical and just weighing all the options. So the way that we're going to do this video is I did some research on kind of some of the past recessions in recent years. And the ones that I'm going to be focusing in on are the 1987 crash, the 1997 Asian crisis, the 2000 dot-com bubble, and then the 2008 Great Recession, as well as considering kind of what's been going on in the recent months. I have to edit that out, make sure that I'm not using the demonetization word. And in considering those, we see that silver actually fell in price in 3 of those 4 recessions and held steady. It increased about 1% in the last one. And that's kind of a sign that maybe silver won't necessarily do great, but I think that that's not really coming at much of a surprise to people because it's also really dipped hard. It's about 30% down. As I make this video, spot is pretty close to $12 when it was previously trading around $19 or $18. But that is kind of a problem signal for silver, unlike other metals. I wonder which one that could be. It isn't something where recession happens and then silver goes up. Now, one thing to consider is that it almost always has outdone the stock market, but it has not outdone cash. So cash is king, I guess. One of the reasons for that is that silver, about 56% of its use is industrial. So it's not just something that people are holding on to and buying for, a safe haven asset. That's a big part of what it is. But one thing that a lot of people don't remember is how much of that is in production. So when production gets severely slashed, if you look right now with the supply chains really cut, and on top of that, you have demand decreasing because people aren't going to have as much money, that's a big problem for people who want to sell things that have silver in it. Off the bat, and kind of at a first glance, silver isn't going to be great. But again, you do have to remember that silver already fell. So it's down 30%. In past recessions, silver hasn't dropped really more than 30% outside of one that I'll talk about, and that ended up having drastically different consequences in the long term or price action. On top of that, the one time that silver did kind of hold steady, it was when silver was already in a bull market, meaning that there was more interest garnered in silver. So it wasn't really something where silver outperformed. It was really that the trend with silver was going up, and it kind of held steady, as opposed to a lot of people flocking to it after relatively low periods of interest. Again, I do want to stress that silver already fell, so I doubt that it's going to go to something like $5, $6, $7 an ounce. Could it see a little bit more fluctuation? Sure. If I had to bet, though, I don't think that we're going to see prices too much below 10, and maybe I'll be cringing as I watch this in 3 months and silver is, worthless, but that's just my personal opinion at this point. Now, the second one is a bit of a contrast to my last point, because in 2008, silver was down overall in that recession, and at one point, so what it did is it was, I think, around like $13 or $14. It surged up to about $20, which was an increase of about 35%, and then it started here, kind of goes up, then falls 50%, kind of bottoming out at around $8 or $9 for a brief period of time before kind of coming back up pretty quickly. And then it would go on its best ever time. 3 years later, it was worth about 300%, or 3 times. I guess it increased 200%, so it went from about $9 or $10 to $30. It would end up spiking briefly all the way up to $50 and then leveling off for a time period at around $30 again. So obviously, if you bought at any point during that dip, it was quite a good investment. Now, as we know, unfortunately, that didn't hold out. But if you're able to time the market properly, you could do well there. But one thing that we do see now is a struggle to actually get your hands on physical silver. Now, the physical silver kind of mention brings me to the third point that I want to make, that I think that it's good to wait to call it a conspiracy with physical silver. The thing that I did is I went to eBay and some of the other sites that were selling silver. On eBay right now, there's a lot of 10-ounce silver bars selling for around $180, that kind of range, so maybe a few dollars more, a few dollars less. And that means that people are paying about $18 an ounce with shipping, and that means that the sellers are selling at around $16 an ounce with shipping. So is that really down that much? Not really, but I think that we'll have to just wait this one out. I don't think that it's a good idea to kind of jump in right now and buy silver at such high premiums. You can buy silver shares, and I'm not going to get into the conspiracies or the ideas that they're actually not really selling silver, that there's nothing backing that up. But the point is that it's pretty tough to definitively say that there is a shortage or there's not a shortage. If you look at a lot of the precious metals dealers online, they're offering things that will probably ship in about a month. So my guess is that there is a lot of silver on the way, and that there will be an influx of silver that will kind of bring the prices down. But if you look at what happened in 2008 again, that's something where it was a short period of time. There's anecdotal evidence. Somebody was saying that like silver was selling, it's like $9 an ounce and people were buying it for 30 or 36. Obviously that's not a very good investment, but that it then did shoot up pretty quickly afterwards. But I just don't think that it's a time where you want to be risking that amount of money. If you're paying $18 an ounce for something that's $12, I just think that that's too big of a premium at this point. I think one thing to consider is we don't know if we're headed into a prolonged recession with things like the supply shock and a real cut in demand that might lead to a lot of bailouts and potentially inflation of the US dollar. I think that would bode relatively well for silver. That's kind of something that would lead to the silver to do well in times of inflation, though there is another metal that seems to be quite strong in those types of periods as well. We also could see in 6 or 9 or 12 months a real big comeback in the stock market and in the economy as a whole. Unemployment's increasing right now. Obviously, stocks have dropped like 30%, 33% the time that I'm filming this, and they could have dropped more or recovered a little bit by the time this video comes out. I do still have some advice for you. It's not me saying I don't have any advice, and that would be to continue following your strategy. So what I do, for full disclosure, is precious metals are a small amount of my portfolio. I don't think that I'm going to sell right now, and I don't think that I'm going to buy. If you have opportunities to buy right at spot for physical silver, like $12 an ounce, I think that if you're somebody who likes silver, that's probably a pretty solid bet, but that's not what the market price is for physical silver at the moment, so you might want to hold off. Because if we do get tons of silver and the dealers aren't going to have to take huge losses on the silver that they're selling, I think that the price of silver will go down for the time being. Kind of along those lines, I think that if the stock market does start to rebound, things like blue chip stocks of companies that are really just solid companies, those will probably perform a lot better than silver did, and can also be easier in terms of not needing to time the market as you might with silver, though that's just, again, my opinion. Now let's go on to gold, which is definitely something that performs slightly differently. So now that we're on to gold, like I said, there's a different performance, and of those 4 kind of periods of crisis, and then I'll talk about what's going on right now, only one time did it go down, and that was about 6%, And in the other three instances, gold increased between 6 and 25%. Now, 6 and 25% seems like solid increases, but the crazy thing is that the S&P 500 was going down minimum 20% in all of those cases. So to have that wide of of a range is really huge. That's like minimum, 25%, 30% performance better than the average. So that's something to bear in mind, that gold has traditionally done a lot better. Now, it's tough to only invest based off, the best investors don't just do what's happened in the past, right? They kind of take in a lot of factors, but that precedent has kind of held right now. 6 months ago, gold is down 2% from that time and 8% from a month ago. There was a time when gold actually did go up kind of a lot recently. So to have high 1400s is still a pretty good price for gold. But we've seen this pattern play out already with what we have going on right now. I already mentioned it, but concerns about inflation could be coming up, and that means that gold would probably be better positioned than silver in those cases. Now, I think gold is different from silver because it's the gold standard, right? That's kind of the main store of money when you're not wanting to be in stocks that will give you returns, and you're not wanting to be in cash because you're worried that cash could be devalued. Gold is probably a pretty good store of value and has been more of a classic one compared to silver. That's probably where people would go if they're flocking out of the dollar. Now, a second point to consider that might be less favorable for gold is that people have been kind of getting involved with gold a fair amount recently. I think it was down to about 1100 at one point, and now it's kind of surged back up to 1500. That's a big price move. And then if you look at the gold to silver ratio, which is right now well over 100, which is something that's very rarely happened, that would say that silver should be brought up, or that gold would be down. Now, I think it's something like 15, 16, 17 to 1 in terms of how much silver there actually is compared to gold, and that's not the value at which we held them. I think briefly, maybe with the Hunt brothers pushing up the price of silver, it could have approached those levels, but really it's been more like 50, 60 to 1. So that might say that silver is undervalued, gold's overvalued, but again, how much can we really trust the silver to gold ratio? It's something that's mentioned a lot, and I'm not sure exactly what to make of that, but I figured that that's something just for me to bring up as another point to consider, that silver theoretically is pretty undervalued right now. And third, this is kind of with gold and with just general investing, is that you should probably understand what time horizon you're investing for and not succumb to panic. So for full disclosure, I've gotten crushed in this market because since I'm pretty young, I have stuff like retirement accounts that I'm trying to have grow well in the long term. And the stock allocations for what I'm hoping for, I invest pretty aggressively. So that means if there's big upswings, I'll probably do really well, but in the downswings, I'm not going to do great. Now, thankfully, I have a fair amount of cash that I can kind of slowly inject into the market and just continue my strategy, which is dollar cost averaging. So if you like to buy gold and silver regularly, I say you might want to keep going for it as long as you can avoid some crazy premiums. But I wouldn't, like what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go overboard with my purchases of gold and silver, nor am I going to try to panic sell all of them and have all of my money in cash. So that's kind of what I would do. Now, if you do need money, if you foresee yourself needing money in 2 or 3 years, that's kind of different. You might want to really think in the short term, but I think generally the best way to guarantee solid results is with a long-term horizon. I don't plan on drastically altering what I'm doing, and I wouldn't recommend that you do either, but there's obviously a lot of different takes, and I probably wouldn't totally change your strategies. I just want to give you some stuff that I've seen and bring to your all attention. So thanks for watching the video. Thanks for considering what the different outcomes are. If I had to guess, I'd say modest increases in the prices of the metals will occur in the next few years, but again, at the same time, silver is at the lowest that's been, I forget exactly what it is, years. It's a really long time, while gold is doing pretty well. So you never know. And I think that that's a big takeaway, not to buy into all the hype that different people are going to try to say to get views or to get people to invest with them. I just think it's best to stay informed, pretty much. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more content, and get in touch with me or contact on treasuretown.yt.com, my website, my Facebook, Treasuretown, my Twitter, @treasuretown_YT, or my Instagram, @treasuretown_YT. Looking forward to seeing you on some of my other videos.